Здрасте, люди добрые. Меня зовут Сева Каплан. И для тех, кто не знает, мы сейчас перейдем, скорее всего, на английский. Я по профессии то, что я называю entertainer, то есть я развлекаю свою аудиторию, но, в принципе, за этим скрывается э, слишком часто журналистика, то есть умение разбираться с информацией, дезинформацией, мисинформацией и способность не становиться жертвой пропаганды ни слева, ни справа. Справа на экране жена моя Анна Каплан, психолог, причем с двойным образованием. Это Московский государственный университет и университет Нью-Йоркский, с огромным опытом работы во всех сферах психологии. А в основании вот этой фигуры, что у вас на экране, наш сын Лука Каплан, который работает в Гарварде, он ученый. И в его жизни, когда он был ребенком, был один момент, который роднит его с убиенным на прошлой неделе Чарли Кирком. Поэтому мы решили собраться сегодня все вместе. Я, как бы специалист по работе с информацией, жена моя специалист с тем, что, потому что называется human condition, то есть что происходит с человеческими мозгами, и сын наш ученый, который привык работать только с фактами, потому что точная наука не требует никаких, так сказать, отклонений от того, что принято считать на сегодня фактами.
Наоборот,
Вот.
это как в анекдоте. Журналист, ученый и психолог собрались вместе.
И
Интересно.
пошли в бар. Да. Так вот, вопрос к нашему ребенку. У нас было такое очень странное лето, когда только родилась дочка, которой здесь нет. Ей было там года полтора-два, значит, Луке было тогда лет 12-13. И мы поехали, по-моему, в Делавэр, штат. И там снимали раньше на какой-то речушке замшелой. Делать было совершенно нечего, пойти было абсолютно некуда. И отовсюду пахло марихуаной, было болото какое-то рядом. И в результате
Это
наш...
было Delaware Water Gap.
Да-да-да. Да. То есть это
С мертвыми рыбами.
почти Пенсильвания, да. И в результате наш сын сидел в основном в темном углу этого ранчо, заваленный книгами, которые он взял в библиотеке и собирался читать, и слушал Раша Лимба. Раш Лимба — это один из самых, это чемпион, кстати, получивший медаль свободы перед смертью, чемпион по части эм, мобилизации правых консервативных сил. И этого Раша Лимба слушал примерно в том же возрасте убиенный Чарли Кирк. Это восходящая звезда правого-консервативного движения, который, я бы не удивился, если бы он стал президентом Соединенных Штатов, ну, скажем, сразу после Джей Ди Вэнса. Но Раш Лимба давал один и тот же материал, одну и ту же пищу для ума этим двум умам. Кирку.
Более того, Лука у нас был почти один в нашей суперлиберальной школе, где там дети всяких разных артистов и ученых учились. Он был единственный, по-моему, республиканец, который действительно верил в какие-то республиканские идеалы.
Точно. И это тоже
То же
роднило
самое,
Луку с
как
Чарли
Лука,
Кирком.
да, Чарли
И,
Кирк.
кстати, эти двое молодых людей, одного которого нет на свете, у них есть что-то общее с человеком, которого предполагают, что он убил Чарли Кирка, потому что Тайлер Робинсон тоже был не такой, как другие. И тоже рано начал заниматься, интересоваться политикой. Поэтому, Лука, к тебе вопрос. Как так получилось, что тебя эм, Раш Лимба не сумел, так сказать, из тебя сделать то, что получилось из Чарли Кирка? Если трудно по-русски, давай можем перейти на английский.
Да, я, что ты меня спросил раньше сегодня, я об этом подумал чуть-чуть. И почему я начал Rush Limbaugh слушать? Ну, во-первых, мне ничего другого не было делать в
Почему
этом.
было? Нет,
А,
извините, там можно было слушать еще каких-нибудь других, там PBS было, там...
да, да, да. Потому что я помню, что вы слушали Rush Limbaugh
Да,
какое-то время.
да, было.
И я помню, что когда я был в этом возрасте, я думаю, вы, наверное, считали себя республиканцами,
Да, мы
да?
были зарегистрированы как
Да
республиканцы.
я и сейчас
Да.
считаю себя республиканцем. Я просто, к
Да.
сожалению, констатирую, что моя партия больна или я выродок. Одно из двух.
Да, да. И как иммигранты, я думал про Рональда Рейгана, что у него было такое представление Америки, что это, он называл это shining city on a hill. И
Мгм.
это было такое место, где любой может сюда приехать, и если будет так тяжело работать, и будет так честный человек, тогда может быть успех. Ам,
Ну-ка, может,
и
на английский
мгм.
перейти? Может, на английский?
Да,
Ты обижаешь ребенка, он вполне сносно все изложил.
я стараюсь.
Не, ну просто я
Ам,
знаю, что ему гораздо легче на
Да.
английском.
And so it was this very hopeful vision of America from a Republican person.
Мгм.
Uh, and and he had this rhetoric of um, the reason why you don't want welfare isn't because people don't deserve it or anything. It's because it's actually counterproductive. Because for people to succeed, you need to have this need to work hard, and then that's better for them. And so everything was kind of framed around this picture, not of like we need to uh defeat some set of people and help some other set of people. It was we need to uplift everybody, and this is just the way we think that it should be done. And so that was sort of the context that I started listening to Rush Limbaugh. And but I think that's like where I came at it from. And at the time I was listening to him and not really many other sources of information because I was a kid. I wasn't trying to uh, change any minds or anything. It was sort of entertainment for me.
And I remember
Um,
that you were trying several times to call in, but your call was not accepted for some reason.
yeah,
Uh,
and I think and I think the rhetoric wasn't quite as heated back then. And I think if you don't listen to other sources of information, he was very convincing. He sort of painted this picture of the liberals were these crazy people who had all these crazy ideas, and of course, like giving welfare was bad for people, and tax cuts would actually uplift everybody and trickle down and improve everybody's stance. And so I think where I came at it from was this perspective of I think this is the way that you can actually help everybody the best.
Мгм.
And I think as I got older, I read other things, listened to other sources, and um, I think as a scientist, I'm just a lot of our training is to be very open minded and to sort of be open to see, okay, like if this person says this, if this person says this, if we see this in the world, like how does this all come together into an actual picture of reality? Um, and I mean, I don't know how Charlie Kirk came at it, but I think that's the reason why, as I got older, I realized actually that I don't think that um, these approaches were the best way to sort of uplift everybody, including people like us, but people who are born here and um, are struggling, and and especially now, I think personally, I think the way that the Republican Party has moved is in this direction where they're actually not interested in helping out big chunks of the country, and it's very antagonistic, and like we'll help as long as these people suffer, and we suffer less, then everything will be good. And so I think that's why I turned away from that kind of wing of politics.
How was it for you to be the only kid in your school who is Republican, or seemingly the only?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I don't think I was the only one, but it was definitely there. There definitely weren't very many.
Mhm.
Um, but like I said, I think it wasn't. it wasn't as heated back then. So
No,
like I think now maybe it would be a little harder, but we would just, we would have a conversation about politics, and I would disagree with people and they would disagree with me, and then we went on and talked about something else. It wasn't people's whole world. Um so
Comparing the Rush Limbaugh's packaging of information and the way Charlie Kirk did it on the students' campuses, I should admit that Rush was very entertaining. And for
mhm,
you young guys, the content didn't matter that much. What mattered to you is the packaging because he was so artistic. He would change
mhm,
voices. He would call people different names. Came
mhm,
up with newer words.
mhm,
So it was like um, a stream an entertaining stream.
mhm. Yeah.
And the contents was like was not the core of the matter. To you,
Mhm,
as well as for Charlie Kirk, it was entertainment. But later on, when Charlie became a motivational speaker, I would say, a political influencer. He
mhm,
changed his looks. I saw a couple of his debates on the campus. He was engaging, of course, but he was boring, straightforward, would not accept um, any questions which kind of insulted his intelligence, because the main thing he was trying to convey to the students it was that you don't need to go to the higher education because I quit my college studies and I read like from 100 to 200 books a year, and I know more
mhm,
than you guys who pay huge money for your education. So with the guy who has 3 million followers, and now it's even more after death,
mhm,
because Michael Jackson's music sells way better after he passed away. Same story with Charlie Kirk. He's an
mhm.
icon. So while being dead, he continues being influential. What do you think we should expect from the future uh, in view of the contemporary politics in our heavily polarized country?
I mean, I'm not terribly optimistic. I think if you want the country to succeed, it's very hard to do that if half the country hates the other half of the country.
Also,
Uh,
if half the country is not educated, because one of the
yeah.
things that Charlie Kirk was saying, education is just brainwashing. By the way,
We
actually,
don't need no
yeah, no,
education.
actually, I'm very curious. You went through all the top schools that are like super brainwashing children. I
Yeah.
don't know why this professors not they don't probably don't know anything else. They just but brainwash. So how come you were not brainwashed?
Oh, we think so of you.
Yeah, maybe I was. No, I mean, I think if you're inclined to think critically about things and you're curious about the world, then you'll seek out different perspectives and then make a judgment for yourself.
Mhm,
And that's just, and I think that's a big value of education, is to sort of foster this curiosity about the world and an ability to actually learn.
mhm,
And if an education program is successful, then that's what it gives you. Uh, and I think I had a lot of very good professors who sort of did that. And the other thing is my education was mostly in science, so uh, you know, uh, politics didn't really come up. We were talking about
So
sort of
Professor did,
less
uh,
heated topics for the most part.
the professors didn't push their political views on you.
Uh, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I only took a handful of classes where that was even something that could happen. But I think all it was is maybe an offhand comment. I think what was much more influential is your peers, right? So if all of your friends who are your age are um, saying something, then you're more likely to um, kind of go along with that.
Mhm. Uh, I'm very interested in your opinion if you have any experience or knowledge, because when you were younger, you would go to a so-called Russian summer camps, but now you don't deal with the Russians as much as you did when you were in your teen years. But anyway,
Mhm.
uh, our families, Russian American families, are extremely interesting in terms of social sciences, because we come from a country which was very damaged. I mean, the people were victims of cultural genocide. I am not afraid of this term, really.
Mhm.
They could not read the books they wanted. If they had those books and would get caught by the authorities that they did, they would go to prison. So most of the people who came here, they came here for economical reasons, and they are not well read. They are like the core of that Soviet people who eventually um, became some kind of a human plant pl- uh, planted in this country with the capability to recreate the atmosphere they once left. And that's why
Mm.
it's my opinion. The older guys, Russian Americans, the old guys, they are so pro-Trump that sometimes when I say, okay, you're free to root for whoever you want, but do you understand sometimes that Trump is under influence of Putin, and whereas you hated Putin, you support Trump, who is turning into Putin in this country.
Mhm.
So it's either suicidal or you never learned anything. And all of them think that their kids were brainwashed in the higher education colleges, which they paid for. So, how would you describe this gap in thinking in these two generations, the newcomers and their offsprings?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for people I don't know, but I think it's about sort of being open-minded. So if you're open to new experiences and new information, then I think you can see sort of what you're saying, like this notion that like Trump and Putin are sort of go together, and if you don't like Putin, then you shouldn't like Trump. But if you're very closed-minded, then you tend not to sort of be open to that information. Um, or if you're just very dug into an existing belief, you tend not to want to hear information that goes against what you already
Mhm.
believe. And that's kind of how I felt, going back to the sort of Rush Limbaugh days. Like that's how I felt talking to my peers in high school. I had this kind of belief system, or these things that I thought were very true. And it takes some work to sort of admit to yourself that you might have been wrong about something. And the longer that you hold a certain opinion, the harder it is to change your mind about it.
Hmm. It's a
I,
good.
I think, hold on a second. I think the key word is it takes some work. Like this,
Mhm.
my kind of as a psychologist without any politics in it. We are in the time when we are totally overwhelmed by information that is just like pouring from every angle at us,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult to process. So people like simplistic solutions and simplistic points of view. I hadn't heard about Charlie Kirk before this terrible shooting, so because this is my profession, I'm very interested in people just generally. I'm very extremely curious about how he, who he was and how he earned his place in this like political space. And I listened to a few snippets or uh, pieces of his interviews on campuses. Well, first of all, these are very young kids, all right? And very young kids, 18, like established guy. He is very, has a whole reputation. He has a banner. He has a whole like organization behind him. He comes on a campus for 18-year-olds. Of course, he's going to overpower them. And like knowing that this he was kind of not valuing education at all. Like you don't have to have higher degree to be smart. Just read books, right? So I think he makes. I don't know if he actually believed in it or it was
Mm,
like a way to be popular. Because I listened to what he says and when he was talking about some psychology issues, it's gobbledygook. I'm sorry, but he had no idea what he was talking about because maybe he read 20 books or 100 books about it, but he could not understand what human psychology is and how humans function. For that you kind of need to be very educated to understand that. So he just overpowers these young people with terms. Oh,
mm,
amygdala, oh, cerebellum, oh, nervous, like this and this, like tabula rasa. These young guys, these guys or girls, whatever, the people, they have no idea what he was talking about, and he's just like pouring these terms on them in a very
mhm,
forceful way. And I think this is how he was so successful. So I think this is your point, very well taken. Education helps you to think
mm.
and not to be susceptible to just one point that is just extremely forced on you.
Uh,
Yeah.
Look, you said being open-minded versus closed-minded. There's a synonym to being open-minded, to think outside of the box. But while listening to you, I came to a realization that we're all thinking inside of a box. Those are the boxes of a different size, probably. But all our thinking has some limitations.
Hmm.
And that's why I want to ask you as a scientist, what do you think of the future is if AI takes over big time? Is it good or bad for the humankind?
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally inclined to. I'm a bit of a Luddite. You know, like to do a lot of these things the hard way. Um, but I think it theoretically could go either way, right? You can have AI constructed in such a way that it augments what people do and is like a super helpful tool, and we have like this big flourishing that happens from it. Or you can have AI which kind of slowly makes us a little dumber. The movie Wall-E, I think, is like a nice example of this, where it's a kids cartoon, but the premise is that in the future, technology has made life so simple that people don't actually need to do anything, and everyone kind of becomes these blobs that kind of sit and order cheeseburgers. And I think that's to me what I'm seeing is like we're kind of pushing in that direction right now. And I think going back to this education thing, if you can just kind of like say, hey, AI, whatever, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, what's the answer to this question? And then it'll give you some good sounding sentences, almost not like you were talking about with Charlie Kirk, right? Like it'll sound convincing.
And
And
like just like this is right, this is wrong, this is white, with this is black. And that people are really good
Nothing
to
in
take
between,
this.
right?
yeah,
Nothing in
yeah,
between.
yeah. And I think it's an okay starting off point. But if you just leave it there, if that's your end point, then I think it can be, it can lead you to some wrong conclusions, but then it can also erode your ability to think for yourself. And I'll occasionally use one of these tools to sort of look at something that I actually know very well, that's related to my work. And I'll see that the answer comes out as plausible, but like is wrong often in a lot of important ways. And uh, I just see that as kind of the example that I always think of in terms of like technology operating in a not obviously bad way is, I think your generation, you guys memorized poems. You sort of memorized and recited poems. And as a kid, I remember thinking, oh, that's such a waste of time. Like you can just like now you can just Google this poem, you can read it. What's the point of memorizing it? And as I'm older, I'm realizing that like memorizing isn't just so that you can recite it word for word. Memorizing it like forces you to sit there and sit with the poem and sort of
Think about
have
it.
it, yeah, think about it and
Live it.
live it exactly. And I think a lot of technology kind of makes things easier in the short term, but then erodes your abilities in the long term. And so that kind of thing made it much easier. You can sort of Google whatever piece of literature you want. You can ask AI what happened to this book, but um, you don't actually get any of the benefit that you would get from reading the book or reading the poem.
Mhm.
And over time, it just kind of makes you worse at being a human. Um, and so I worry that that's where a lot of this is pushing because we're trying to move super super fast and no one is making meaningful efforts to kind of put up any kind of guardrails. I don't even know how you would, but
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more last question for both of you guys. For you, Lukanyak, as a scientist, and for you, my wife, as a psychologist. Do you think that our conversation would be of any help to those who would eventually listen to it, uh, based on the language we use?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, okay. The problem of the
Mm.
left media is that it's too elitist. It's too complicated in their
mm.
narrative.
We
Uh,
didn't say anything complicated. I don't think so.
that's why I'm asking you, do you think this conversation would be heard to the end, or people would just quit listening after the first 2 minutes?
Yeah, can I say first?
Ladies first?
I do not know, and I don't think any of us know. And somebody will listen to it, hopefully, and somebody won't. There will be people who will say these three are idiots, or look at this, like, oh, he's not shaved, or she has whatever hair not in place.
I'm shaped.
Yeah, I'm sure. But that's the whole reason why we decided to do it is maybe somebody will listen and find something useful in it, and that's all we hope for.
Luke, you have anything to add to what your mom just said?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I try and I think when the reason why I like a conversation like this is because if you just send a tweet or have this like kind of short form communication, you you tend to kind of uh be antagonistic in your communication. Like these people are awful, these people are amazing, this is the end of the world, this is our salvation. And I think most people ultimately want something good for their families, good for their neighbors. And I think if you kind of phrase things in a way where you talk about the world in that sense and not in like a like you're evil, I'm great. um I hope people are more willing to listen and keep an open mind about stuff. But like mom said, I'm sure most people would either agree or disagree, and then nobody's mind has changed.
Yeah, and as your sister would put it, if she were with us, she would say, people suck.
No,
Yeah, so
she
I
made two
disagree with that.
discoveries. Well, she disagrees. But she made two discoveries when she went to college. The first year of college, she said, "Mom, I understood two things. What? People suck and people are weird." And I said, "I spent years and years and years to figure that out." And a lot of
People can be
education.
weird. People are definitely weird, but I don't think people suck.
Some do, some don't.
I think people are very, very changeable, and so if you're surrounded by people who are loving and caring and work hard to make the world a better place, then that's probably how you'll wind up too. And so that's what I
Oh,
hope for.
this is opening. We don't have time for this, but I wish we can do another conversation about it because these people who are against abortions, that's kind of the whole thing. How like yes, you can give birth to a child, but then it's a whole project to make that child a worthwhile human being, right?
Mhm.
So somebody who is not really traumatized or really kind of bad person. So that's a whole different thing.
Mhm.
I'll put this conversation on one of my channels, and if the viewership exceeds like 250, that would mean that we've done a good deal.
I disagree. I
Mhm.
can tell you. I think that like you asked me to come on your show many times, and I didn't want to too much because it's a lot of effort. But also, I don't know. It's just like I'm not a very public person. I don't like to be on center stage. But we came to this time, and it's not a political statement at all. Has nothing to do with our government or anything else. I just see across the world. I see people I work with. I see what's happening and I kind of understand some of the issues that make it happen. So I would like to talk about it. Like, really, this is the time to talk about it, not in the political aspect of it.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're done.